Hello everyone, and welcome to a tutorial type video today. So one of my friends has requested that I show how I do my ballasting, because I feel like I've sort of gotten the routine that I do pretty well perfected. This is in no way how you should do ballasting, this is just how I do it. And normally I only use the items in front of me here. So I use Wooden Scenics medium ballast, which is light grey. Obviously this is, what is it, 57.7. Obviously it's generally better to use sort of N gauge or slightly smaller ballast for double O gauge trap because it fits a bit better and looks a bit better, but this is just sort of what I've got lying around. I use quite a light colour because it's easier to weather. You can sort of bring out a few more colours in it rather than if it's dark grey. All you can do is sort of get it a bit dirtier. With this you can really, if it's plain white and bright, you can really go a lot further with your track weathering, but that's sort of a different thing. I use Deluxe Materials Ballast Bond. The real reason I sort of use this over PVA is I used to use PVA, but obviously you have to get the mixture right between water and glue. And on quite a few occasions I either put too much in or not enough in, and that's partially the reason why I'm having to reballast and relay a lot of my track at the moment. So this is just sort of a good for dummies glue, if that makes sense, but I'll explain how to use it later. And then just a spray bottle of water with a little bit of washing up liquid, a ruler. This is for mainly when you're doing straight track. I just find it's easier to sort of brush it back into line if you want a nice straight line on the edge, and a track rubber to rub any glue or wet or whatever off, and then a little Humber or paintbrush is all I use. So today we'll be doing, as I said last time, I've now relayed this entire curve, so we'll be focusing in on this, so I'll just reposition the camera and we'll get started. Right, so we're going to be doing this curve here. Like I said, don't worry about that white patch, that's just some filler that I put down to cover up some holes earlier. Now, the way I spread it down, you can use, and I know everyone will probably tell me to use, the TD'Z ballast spreaders, which are these, but they're actually HO scale. I'm not a massive fan of these. If you've got to do a massive area, like a huge shunting yard or a big loco depot, then they are quite good. But I tend to find, especially a basic one like this, with no flap on the bottom or anything, is a bit rubbish for what I need, just because you spend the majority of your time brushing up excess ballast that you didn't want to put down. So I mean, if you used N gauge, it would probably be ballast, it would probably be quite good, because it would fill in a bit better, but for double O gauge ballast, it's just a bit too much. And also on corners, you'll find there'll be big gaps where it goes around on the side, so that's why I'm not a massive fan. I did used to use a proper glue spreader, but it wasn't by the same company, but it wasn't great quality and ended up breaking, so, but the ballast bond stuff's better anyway. So what I do is, you get the Wooden Scenics bottle, and all these bottles have these really handy lids, which handy for many different uses, where you've got two ends. You can either drop it out the side all in one go, don't know why you want to do that. I think that's more for sort of other scenic items. And then a little drop one, which is what we'll be using. So we just pour a little bit in. And there you go, you won't need loads. Not for this bit anyway. Then just open up that side there. If I can get a better angle on this, zoom in a little bit, you can see what I'm actually doing. And then start from whichever side you think is most convenient. So I'll probably start from this side just because I can merge it into the ballast that's already here. And you just brush it out through the side. Obviously if any goes in the middle, it's just a bonus. Over on there. Oh, one more thing, I did forget. There is another tool that we will need, which is just a pair of tweezers, which is what I use when I put the glue on, and sometimes there's excess ballast and it's just handy to pick it out with this, but you'll see that later. So I did forget that. Apologies for that. So the bit that it's built in the middle, we'll just push over there. The handy thing about these lids is that you can literally see, when you open it, where it's going to go through the holes. So you can just brush it out exactly where you want it, which is the really handy thing. That's why I like using these, it's easier to regulate where you're putting it through, whereas the ballast spreader that just dumps it everywhere. Yeah, basically I had to relay this corner because, like I said earlier, I didn't put didn't mix enough glue into the water glue mixture, and when we moved house and the heat got up and I'd moved the layout into the shed, eventually the ballast just moved under the track and raised it basically permanently, so had to be ripped up and replaced. But it's meaned I've obviously been able to put down some proper Pico track, which is nice, so it's an upgrade really. Right, so we'll just whack a little bit in the middle there. I tend to just go on the right hand side of the lid because I'm right-handed, and that's just sort of where I look to, but you can obviously use both sides. Also, big thanks for the feedback I got on my update video last week. I was very surprised at how much everyone enjoyed my content. I got about 300 views within a couple of days, which was unheard of for my channel really, unless it's something big and clickbait-ish. So big thanks for that. Glad you're all enjoying. So a little bit more in the middle there. You can obviously flick across and just make sure you get it in the corners right up against the chairs, because otherwise if there is a gap in that corner it will show up black or brown, whatever the colour of your board or your track is, and it's sort of more noticeable from afar. Sounds strange, but it's true. So if there's little gaps in the side, like there's a little gap here, you can't really, well, you can't see it from that angle, but you've got to fill in a little bit there, because otherwise it becomes quite noticeable. But obviously you don't all have to do it at once. You can always go back and fill in and add more as you see fit. Okay. There. Could do perhaps a slightly thinner brush, but this one is generally pretty good for what I need it for. I do use painting as well occasionally, so I'm just going to do up to about here, because obviously if I did the whole piece we'd be here all day. Reason I was going to do this last week, but I've had to ballast both of the back straights over there, and obviously if you've seen my layout update video, I had to move it away from the wall and squeeze in a very tight gap, and it's been a little bit tricky. So now that we've put a bit down on the side, we can use the ruler to, I just use an old rough like school ruler and sort of help scrape it back in. There we go, so it's nice and neat. What quite often happens when you do this is you get a bit of a bulge on the side there, so you can also use it to sort of flatten that out a little bit. Or brush a bit away at the sides and then carry it on down. I do that as well sometimes. That works the same, really. I'm debating doing a video on track weathering, but it's a little bit tricky to do airbrushing on camera. I know Everard Junction does it, because he does it in every other video, but yeah, at the minute I'm trying to figure out a way of spraying the track on the other side of the board without getting paint all over the wall. I might just use a big piece of card or something like that, put up temporarily so I don't end up spraying the whole wall. That would not be very good. I don't really want to change the colour of my room to sleeper grime. Okay. Alrighty, well that's enough to be able to show you the rest of the process. Put that ballast back in there. go. Right, so the next step is to wet it. Now, using Ballast Bond, I find that you don't need to wet it very much. Now, the purpose of wetting it is obviously to dampen it, and it does help the ballast kind of stick together temporarily, which also helps with the gluing. Now, it actually says on the Ballast Bond bottle to not do this and to just put it on dry. The problem is when you do that, the ballast goes everywhere and you end up brushing it all back in again. Well, not everywhere, but it does mess it up a little bit, is what I've found. And I have found with Ballast Bond as well that one coat of glue isn't really enough. You need to go over it twice for it to really set rock hard. And I have been experimenting the last couple of weeks, seeing whether it makes a difference whether you water it or not, because I thought watering it was what was causing it not to stick properly, because it was just diluting the mixture further. But this has turned out to not be true, and it doesn't really seem to make a difference, so I would recommend still spraying it first, just in case. So, just a little bit on there, and then tidy up any bits that have gone haywire. Like I said, this is the bit that I think would be a bit easier if I'd used a finer grade of ballast. But I bought it quite a long time ago, I'm not sure where from or how long ago exactly, so I'm just sort of using it up. So that's all on there. Now, the Ballast Bond novel comes with a very handy sort of little spout thing. It does come as well with a super thin nozzle which is in there, but I don't bother with that because they just jam up. Anyone who's used the Flux Materials card glue will know what I'm talking about. So that's not quite in there yet. Now, obviously these only come in small bottles, but I bought a huge refill bottle when I was at Worley for like 15, 20 quid, which has served me quite well so far. So all you need to do is sort of tip it like that, and then a few drops will come out. You can obviously apply and decrease pressure as you see fit on the bottle. And then just using the tweezers, poke a few odd bits here and there, but obviously it doesn't matter if it does dry with some of it on the sleepers. That can be realistic, you know, not all ballast is completely uniform in real life. And you can just flick it off when it's dry. It just requires a bit more persuasion than when you're doing it before it's dried, really. Gluing it in the sleepers is the really tricky bit, because if you've stacked it quite tall, like I usually end up doing, just make sure you're gentle, because otherwise it tends to merge between the different sleepers as you're gluing it, but I think I got away with it that time. That was pretty good. Right, and that's on there. Now, the good thing about Ballast Bond is, unlike PVA, it doesn't take like a whole day to dry. It's pretty quick, really, if you've, well, in the weather we've got, it's pretty warm everywhere. Obviously, if you're in a really cold shed or garage or your attic, it might take a bit longer. But generally, it's an hour, 2 hours generally, for me, I find. Because having put the glue on, it dries pretty quickly. So it's not too bad, really. But that's all there is to it, really, with what I do with regards to ballasting. Like I said, this wasn't a how-to, this is just how I do it. I'm sure everyone else has got different methods that are great. It's just finding the method that works best for you, really. So that's all from me. Anything you'd like to see, as usual, just drop me a message or a comment. Hope you're all well, and I'll see you in the next one.